My name is John Gubert. I'm talking to you from NeMa in Croatia, and I am with Angus Scott from Euroclear. Angus, you've just been talking on a panel on blockchain. I want to go a bit wider than blockchain and talk about generally the technological environment and its impact on the business. We keep on hearing about disruptive technologies. We keep on hearing about 10-year timeframes. But what is going to happen in your mind over the next 2-3 years? And what should the various parties in the market be doing?
Well, I think if you look at the challenge in the markets that we see, they are essentially data challenges. So most post-trade operations are operations to share and enhance and normalize data. And it's very inefficient in the world today. So you have lots of parties having to work and rework the same pieces of data, not communicating directly with their counterparties, struggling to find who they need to get the data to or where they can get it from. So I think the immediate short-term changes will be improved ways in which data can be shared. And I don't just mean reference data, although that's obviously important. I mean, for example, data on exceptions in markets, data on holdings and positions, giving people better ability to collateralize their trading strategies and so forth. And most of the things we're working on, or a lot of the things we're working on, really fall into that category. So our work with the DTCC is about how we can improve the data that banks have around their holding positions, make it more mobile, make it more available, make it more real time, and therefore reduce the effort that they have to spend in their operations in managing that data. So that's where I see the big changes. We've invested in TaskGuys, which is a company designed to link people together to improve the way they manage data. So it's about connectivity and it's about management of information in the markets.
I mean, my understanding would be that that creates two challenges. The first is standardization, especially messaging. But the second is also the likelihood that data held in different locations is not accurate, is not identical. How do you clean up data? How do you standardize the transmission of data? What steps and actions do you need to take for that?
Well, a lot of it's actually around communication, because if I've got one view of data and you've got a different view of data, that only matters if we need to come to some consensus on what that data is at a point in time. So if it's easy for me to get in touch with you through some channel, and then we can resolve the problem, we've taken away that problem. So I think a lot of the short-term things will really be about platforms that enable that kind of communication in the world. Of course, longer term, then you can get into other ways of trying to reach consensus around data. Once you reach consensus, of course, you fairly quickly get into the distributed ledger blockchain world, which is a different thing. But there are plenty of short-term practical things you can do to improve the way data is shared in a post-trade world to the benefit of everyone from an operational point of view.
Can you give me one or two examples of those things we can do?
I mean, a very simple, not particularly technologically advanced one is around claims. So we've got a service which we launched just to help people publish out their claims in a controlled environment and let other people acknowledge and match on those claims. Not very technologically exciting, but a very practical way of sharing data more efficiently, because previously you had to send them out by emails or faxes or whatever. I mentioned TaskGuys earlier. TaskGuys is a platform that lets people find operational counterparties that they need to talk to fix problems. I mean, it's a basic problem in a bank is that operations people are spread around the world now. They have quite high rates of attrition and turnover. It's a classic thing. You pick up the phone trying to find someone to deal with, and you spend 20 minutes just trying to get your way through the system. TaskGuys is designed to help that problem. So it builds a connection. Two people who need to both solve a problem can collaborate to solve it. The data gets resolved. The trade goes through. So those kind of examples are just very practical, down-to-earth steps.
I mean, those are things in the short term. Longer term, I think we all feel that there's going to be a major change in the technological landscape. And there a study that Euroclear were part of showed that, taking this long-term view. Looking forward, and this is where technology becomes disruptive, how do you see the market changing? How is your footprint as an organization going to change? Are there going to be new entrants? Are there going to be people who exit, in your mind?
I think the starting point is that at the moment, the world we operate in has an odd structure in the sense of people offer value-added services, whether they're liquidity management services, cash management, stock lending, transactions, whatever those services are. Lots of people offer those services. But in order to offer them, they have, first of all, to get their hands on the customer position, and they guard that jealousy. It's a stickiness which guarantees them in business. But again, taking this point of if you can somehow lift that data out and put it in the hands of a customer, then you can start to buy your services in a very different way. You're no longer locked into arrangements. You can go in a much more flexible way to different parties. So if we look at the market evolving over time, one possible way in which that could happen is if people start to work on common data sets about holdings and transactions, then the roles, the way people buy services could be quite different, and therefore the organisations selling those services could start to look quite different, even though the basic functions are still there. So you still need cash management, in fact, you still need cash in itself, you still need people to manage that cash, you still need to have people who can help you make sense of your assets, make optimization decisions and so forth, but you might be able to go to different types of parties to buy those services in the future. But I think that's, because I think if you look at the analogy of say the equity trading world, the front office world, we've gone from a situation when I started working in the early 90s where it was telephone based or floor based, dominated by broker dealers and market makers, quite high commission still, a lot of money to be made from principal trading, and now we're in a position where it's almost entirely automated, margins are tiny, principal risk taking is unprofitable, and almost all of the business goes through electronic platforms, and so from a sort of the economics of the business have changed fundamentally, although from the outside it still looks quite similar.
So what do you think is going to be the equivalent in the post-trade world of those screen-based automated platforms?
So I mean, it's hard to predict because we're at the start of a long and complicated journey. But I could kind of see that where you had, for example, a common record in the market of positions and transactions, which is controlled by the people who have a direct interest in that, the end investors, in some way, then that liberates people to interact with each other in a different way. So you have, so then they would be buying custody services from different types of people. And going even further, you can imagine that the very nature of cash, for example, starts to look different, which would have a very profound change. So what do I mean by that? At the moment, cash means daily liquidity on a commercial bank balance sheet. But we know that it's hard for commercial banks to provide daily liquidity for non-operating cash balances. So if non-operating cash now needs to find other ways to invest itself, that starts to redefine what cash is, and you start to get direct access to various types of short-term portfolios. So those two things, giving customers control of data and having a much more direct relationship between customers and their assets, would result in a very, very different financial architecture in the future.
Indeed, change is the nature of the game. Thank you very much indeed, Angus.
Thank you.